Hello, everyone, and welcome to the OTS Podcast, Tracks and Trajectories, the podcast where we explore the journeys that connect science, conservation, and the incredible people driving change in the world. I'm your host, Zing, and today we have a truly inspiring story to share, one that spans continents, ecosystems, and cultures. Our guest for today is Alec Iruri Tucker, an OTS alumnus with a passion for ecology, conservation, and the intersection of science and community. Alec's journey has taken him from the lush rainforest of Costa Rica to the sweeping savannas of South Africa. Having experienced the best of OTS courses in these two incredible locations, immersing himself in the hands-on field-based learning that OTS is known for, Alec's experiences aren't just about science, they are about growth, adaptability, and understanding how different cultures approach the shared goal of conserving our planet. But as it's always been on the podcast, the OTS experience is not just all about science and field work. We'll also hear about Alex's memories, wildlife encounters, cross-cultural adventures, and maybe even his favorite local dish from Costa Rica or South Africa. So let's settle in and let's explore the tracks and trajectories of Alec. Alec, you are welcome to the OTS podcast. It's good to have you here. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. Thank you very much for that very lovely introduction.
Great, sure. Now, we start right from the beginning. So I would say, how did you hear about OTS? And you could just add that with any introduction about yourself that I probably haven't sort of spoken about.
Oh yeah, well, you gave a very, I think, thorough outline of my undergraduate and then going into my graduate career. So I did start with OTS in Costa Rica. I heard about it through a program going through the National Science Foundation here in the States. There was an international study abroad opportunity that I took with Dr. Michael Wasserman here at Indiana University. And that brought me to La Selva Biological Field Station in Costa Rica to conduct my first sort of foray into an individualized research project. And in that research project, I was collecting fecal samples from the howler monkeys and spider monkeys that were present in the forest and assessing them for the presence of antibiotic-resistant microbes. Now, that study didn't go exactly as I had planned it, but I would say that no undergraduate study, especially one that is that's planned by a young scientist, goes exactly as they're thinking. And I think that also plays into OTS's approach of you go and for an experiential learning experience, you learn the failures of your methodology and then improve upon those in the future. And I would like to think at least that I have improved on these methods quite a bit, and I've learned a lot from OTS field scientists and working in the courses as well. So that was in 2018 now that I did that. And a lot has happened since then.
Right. And that's what we will be unpacking on this podcast. We'll see how you've come from that 2018 experience of hearing about OTS to where you are now in 2024. But again, for the benefits of our listeners, what OTS program did you attend and when?
Well, it wasn't strictly through an OTS program that I was working when I did that in 2018. But later on, I did a African ecology field course in South Africa, and it was through my connections at OTS that I had forged in Costa Rica, as well as some of the faculty who have worked in Costa Rica and in other areas of the world, that I was able to hear about OTS being present in Kakuza and Kruger National Park. And I jumped at the opportunity to learn more about African ecology because I realized in my later undergraduate career that I was really intrigued to try my hand in other ecosystems outside of just the rainforests in Costa Rica where I had been concentrating. And the idea of going to a savanna environment was really intriguing to me. And I was, especially at that point in my life, focused on primates. And so I wanted to see what types of African primates were out there and then what I could learn. And so I went into that program.
And that was in 2022.
That's correct.
Fall semester. Because I remember that was also just about the time that I joined OTS South Africa, and that definitely came quite strongly as one of my memories of you arriving in South Africa straight from Costa Rica. You were in the US, you had spent time in Costa Rica, if I remember correctly, and you had to fly straight from Costa Rica to Skukuza. Is that correct? Do I remember right?
Yeah, yes, it was a quick turnaround. So I was teaching a field course, not with OTS, but we were
Mhm,
staying in OTS field stations.
mhm,
And on my return from that, I went to Honduras, and I was teaching very briefly there, not for any sort of academic purposes, but just English as a second language. I was there, and then I heard about the opportunity in South Africa, so I actually left from the San Pedro Sula airport in Honduras and went to Johannesburg.
oh,
And it was a quick turnaround. And at that point, when I had arrived, I thought I might be a little bit exhausted, but it was so fun to actually land in Kruger National Park that I
mhm.
I didn't feel the tiredness at all. I was eager to dive into it and to meet people in South Africa, and I guess who would be my future colleagues and peers.
Right, right. That's very interesting. Now, earlier on, you did mention the very experiential learning approach that OTS does. Studying ecology in the field is a whole different experience from being in a regular traditional classroom like you find in most universities anywhere in the world, really. How did the OTS hands-on field-based learning shape your understanding of ecology as compared to traditional classes back in, say, Indiana University, where you're from?
Mm. Yeah, that's a really fantastic question. And I suppose to answer that, I'd have to say that I love Indiana University,
Mhm.
and I think they have a fantastic program in animal behavior, and their ecology courses within their biology program are also top notch. But there's one big factor that they lack, and that's that if you want to do hands-on field work, especially in somewhere like the neotropics or the savannah, you won't be able to do that in Indiana, in the United States,
Mhm.
even. So that's something that the OTS provided, and they are able to mix that lecture-based experience that you might have in like a typical classroom with doing that in the field even. So you can give a lecture in the field and see, hey, that is this plant or this interaction that we're learning about right now, we can see played out in the field. One memory that I have very well is of Dr. Lawrence Kruger giving us a good lecture on prescribed burns, and right next to us was a burn plot.
Right.
So it's that sort of approach that has really stuck with me, because it will do a lot more to keep that memory and that learning experience in your mind if you're actually there. And I mentioned a little bit about my own experiences uh, with developing field methods that
Mhm.
stayed within a a concise budget, and that were workable at an undergraduate level. And I think that is something that OTS teaches very well,
Mhm.
as well, because they have people there who are able to you have that back and forth with that discussion about these methods choices.
Right. And that's a really interesting take. I was having a chat with one of the OTS alumni earlier on, and we talking about the same point and how OTS really holds this very unique position of preparing students for the workforce or for life in the working environment, which really complements what most universities do. What you said about Indiana University is true of all universities. In
Mhm.
my experience, I'm yet to find any university that really has this classic field on experiential type learning. And that's true of most universities, and kind of OTS, where OTS comes in and does this thing that is different from what you find in most study abroad programs, is just take these students with very good theoretical knowledge and understanding of the ecosystem of biological sciences, of conservation, and really bringing in this aspect of how do you translate theory to practice, putting this in the field. That I think is an area that makes OTS alumni to really excel at their various places of work, because they get this really good bridge of having to translate all the theory into practice and preparing them for what they do in their life after their education. So I'm glad that it's coming up here again. Moving forward, you have had this very unique experience of studying both in Costa Rica and the Kruger National Park in South Africa. what has this experience been like for you? If you could describe each campus with one animal, what would they be and why? So the OTS campuses you've been to in Costa Rica and South Africa.
Oh, all right. Well, that is a great question. And I'll say that I really enjoyed both campuses, both the I mean, of course, OTS has several campuses in Costa
Mhm.
Rica,
Mhm.
and I've been fortunate enough to go to several of them. But I think that the biological field station in La Selva is what really comes to mind as a flagship um, field station. And there, I would have to say that I really enjoyed all of the wildlife. The incredible amount of biodiversity at that field station is really remarkable. But if I were to select one animal, it would probably have to be the sloth. I was so excited to see a sloth. I'd been lucky in my younger life to spend a good amount of time in Central America because I have a mother who was a social anthropologist, and she continues to study in Honduras, which is one reason why I went there. And I was always hoping to see a sloth, always hoping to see some more of these tropical creatures, and it was almost immediate in the first day that I arrived at the field station.
Yeah.
And whereas in Kruger, I
Mhm.
came in and I had never seen an elephant in the wild. And it was the similar sort of thing. And I
Right.
was told over and over again, don't worry, you're going to see an elephant if you go to Kruger. No worries. And even though I'd been told this, I kept thinking in the back of my mind, I'll probably be so unlucky I won't get to see an elephant. And of course, day one, it's hard to miss them if you go to Kruger. Yeah. So I would say that those animals really captured the field stations for me.
Right. Yes, definitely. You can miss an elephant in the Kruger National Park. The numbers are all, besides the fact that it's a beast of an animal in terms of size, really big, the numbers are also quite doing so well that you cannot miss it.
All right.
And yeah, and both South Africa and Costa Rica have incredible rich cultures, which that's one thing that the two countries have in common. Was there an aspect of culture or local representation on the conservation that really challenged or expanded your own worldviews as regards to your experiences in these two places?
Hmm. Well, that's a really great question, and I think that there's also a lot to unpack there because despite the fact you have this overarching similar mindset in OTS with both of the field stations
Mhm.
in Skakusa and in Costa Rica, some of the approaches even taken in the field are shaped somewhat by, as you said, the local culture and the perspectives on conservations. Um, because both Costa Rica and South Africa have a rich history of conservation, but certainly one that are different and different approaches of conservation. In South Africa, for example, we have more of this privatized model of conservation or towards um, trophy hunting, I think would be one example, or that many of the national parks in South Africa are
Mhm.
fenced, which is necessitated because of the wildlife that live there.
Mhm.
Whereas in Costa Rica, it's a very different approach where hunting is actually completely illegal in the country. Um, and that is, with the exception of indigenous groups, um, that is largely informed in both countries because of uh, social and political struggles resulting from colonial history and
Mhm.
as well as some exploitation history of the natural environment. I think of especially in Costa Rica, um, in the 1940s, there was a tremendous amount of tropical forest that rapidly declined in a few decades, especially in the 60s. I believe it was from the 40s to 60s, there was a 75% deforestation, loss of forest in Costa Rica. And since then, um, policies adopted in the 80s and 90s have caused the tropical forest to rebound in a really effective way. But part of that informs the modern conservation strategies that that are being practiced in Costa Rica, including that zero hunting policy, including payment for ecosystem services that are available in Costa Rica. And it's interesting to contrast both field stations and approaches, and there's ample opportunity to learn from being in both countries and their
Mhm.
conservation approaches.
And in terms of your experiences at OTS, both in Costa Rica and South Africa, I'm sure you must have picked a couple of skills along the way, which has really helped you somewhat in your career and academic projector. What was one of the most unexpected skill that you've picked during your time at OTS? And this could either be in the jungles of Costa Rica or the savannah of South Africa. What was one skill that perhaps you, thinking back now, you thought that was quite unexpected, but you found it to be quite helpful to where you are today?
Well, I think staying dry in the field is one skill that I picked up, and I'm still working on. I guess I would say that there's like those really tactile sort of things of doing field research, but then in a broader sort of perspective, I think that doing field work, and including getting to meet all of these fantastic new people with a bunch of different perspectives on the world and approaches to ecology, it has made me more interested and in both ecology and communities. And so I'm very happy with a lot of my experiences that have happened in OTS, and I certainly take it with me, not just in like my academic career goals, but just in my life in general.
OTS has been around for 60 years, doing magic, science and conservation, and training world leaders in these fields. I like having been part of this organization that has been existing for this long. 60 years in Costa Rica, 20 in South Africa. Earlier this year in May, we celebrated 20 years in South Africa. It was really nice to see alumni from all these years coming around. It was one of the moments that I saw myself as part of this big picture, and it was very humbling but deeply satisfying. So just trying to bring that to you now. These years that OTS have sort of put into shaping generations of ecologists and conservationists. How do you see your OTS experience fitting into this legacy?
Well, I think that my own place in the legacy of OTS is a difficult question. Of course, I would love to continue to work with OTS, but especially that legacy that you're talking about is something that I also feel when I'm in a field station, because I believe there's a quote that I quite like about scientists. We're all standing on the shoulders of giants that came before us, and that's impossible to not feel when you're at a field station, because you have all of these excellent scientists that go back generations now, as you said, 60 years of background, and so much of what we know about these individual field sites, especially like I'm thinking in Skakuza and Kruger National Park and in La Selva. Most of these publications are people who are like publications that inform what we know about the field now, were done by people who either worked with OTS or stayed at that field site for some length of time, whether they do that as a senior scientist or at some point in their younger years. And I think that's pretty amazing to go back in the literature and see that happening time and time again. I'm sure if you were to just put the field sites into Google Scholar or Web of Science, you would find thousands and thousands of hits. I know that for a fact. And so where I see myself fitting among that legacy is that I can see that these scientists and the people who are working with OTS haven't just invested in the science, but are investing in the future of the sites. And that means investing in the younger generation of scientists that are coming in. And it's that approach that I feel like I want to take with me in my future academic career, as well as everywhere else in life. I mean, it's really important to instill that kind of inspiration in the next generation. And right now I'm in the position of being quite young and having all these aspirations, but at the same time, I want that to be like kind of a collective goal. So everyone who I work with in the future, and students who I may instruct now and in the future, I want them to feel that they're all part of this, that we're all standing on the shoulders of the giants that came before us, and that maybe in the future we'll be the next ones who are informing.
And I would just want to add to that also, you playing quite a pivotal role in currently I'm involved with the recruitment of OTS students, potential students, and having to travel around different universities. And I was in Indiana recently, and you played quite a big role in just facilitating things for me on the ground. And again, that's all part of, I believe, you playing a part in this legacy to ensure that passing on the torch to future generations. And that's something I think you're doing so excellent. And I would say thank you so much for all the role that you played to ensure that OTS remains visible and accessible to students from Indiana University.
Well, thank you so much, and for coming here, because it really was great to have you visit the campus and everything, and we hope for many more visits. Because
Absolutely.
I know, speaking from somebody who came from the undergraduate career of Indiana University, that there are many students who would absolutely jump at the opportunity of
Mm,
joining a field course in either South Africa or Costa Rica.
right. Yeah, definitely looking forward to that and having more representations of Indiana University attending OTS. Now, how has your OTS experience, and this is from 2018, we're trying to like wrap things up, 2018 to your time in South Africa in 2022, how has all this experience influenced your academic or your career goals since you returned from your last trip? So that's 2022. Are there any lessons or moments that you find yourself drawing from in perhaps unexpected or expected ways?
Hmm. Well, maybe to start with the expected way,
Yeah.
I took the African ecology field course
Mhm.
in 2022, and then the summer afterwards, I was leading a course in Uganda, and we were working in the Makerere biological field station, and that was this close to Fort Portal uh, in Uganda, and it was also a tropical field experience. And I had with me seven students, and I felt like I learned a lot, not just about the teaching experience, but I was able to actually employ a lot of what I learned about African ecology, even though it was coming from more of a savanna perspective.
Mhm.
South Africa, I felt like I was able to bring a lot more to that course if I hadn't
Mhm.
been in the
Mhm.
OTS experience. So that's a more tactile and expected, I suppose, sort of outcome. In an
Mhm.
unexpected way, because we had all of this diversity in training in the OTS field course in Skakuza, I didn't realize I was going to come out with it with this huge fascination of birds that I have now. And I was like, oh, I recognize that. That's a that's a dictum. Okay, and things like that. And I really I became a lot more fascinated, and now I've brought that back here to Indiana with me as well. So that might be a little bit of an unexpected takeaway.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I think that that's
Yes.
that's kind of where I'm at with.
Yeah. Really enjoyed listening to that. Now, what I've found with some of the alumni that I've had to chat with over this podcast is there's this sort of culture shock of having to travel to from the US to South Africa. For many of the students, it's the first time in Africa, for some, first time out of the US. So there's that bit of culture shock. And the semester lasting 100 days and returning to the US, there is some sort of reverse culture shock. But in your own case, you have done quite a bit of travel before then. So perhaps your experience will be slightly different. But after immersing yourself in South African life for that full semester, what was it like for you returning to the US? Did you get to experience this reverse culture shock, or how has that experience changed in the way you see your life back in the US? If this would be same for you or different?
Yeah, that's also a really good question. I don't know if I would say that I experienced reverse culture shock as much as I just missed purely being in the field.
Mhm.
Because at the end of the day, the reason why myself and I know so many others are involved in this type of research, whether it's ecology or social research that takes you elsewhere in the world to conduct field work. It's because of one, hoping to instill some sort of change or to inform the public or other scientists about what you're doing. But that foundation, all of that comes from the field work itself. And I suppose that when I get involved in this, I'm like, I come back and I just have this sort of letdown period where I have all of this adrenaline while I'm in the field, and
Mm.
all this excitement to learn and then to share. But I come back and it's just, oh, I'm back doing classes, and it's like a regular flow of things, and you have this kind of maybe even impulsive need to share
Mhm.
about all of the experiences that you had, but then it's almost,
Yeah.
it'd be overwhelming to do the friends who you're coming back to meet here.
Right.
So I didn't, I would say, experience reverse culture shock, but it was certainly an experience that I want to go back to. Speaking on the culture shock, though, I know that I have observed all ranges of students when it comes to how they adapt to a new local culture. If they have
Right.
a lot of stress, or they're really
Mhm.
excited about it, or there's some sort of mix. It's really been fascinating to see the diversity in that.
Now let's talk food. Food
Oh yeah.
gets me really excited. Was there a meal or a local dish from either Costa Rica or South Africa that you would want to bring to the US, or maybe one that you find never having to eat again?
Oh. Well, for to answer Costa Rica,
Mhm.
gallo pinto is their classic dish. It's a simple mix of rice, or of rice and black beans
Right.
that they season really well, and I love it. It's You can find something similar in the U.S.
Mhm.
And what you can't find in the U.S., and this is a South African one, is pop. You can't
Right.
find pop in the U.S.
Yeah.
And we didn't have a ton of that on the field course, because maybe it's not as familiar to the American palate.
Mhm.
Um, but I wish it were here. I wish I could find it, because I ate it in Uganda as well, and
Right.
it just
Mhm.
became like second nature. You have it on the plate.
Right.
And then over time, it's just because that's a staple that's there. I just got used
Mhm.
to it. And I come back to the United States and I say, "What? Where's my pop?" Yeah, I don't know how to make it. If I remember right, it requires a lot of like heavy beating. So it might take
Mhm.
some practice on my end. But yeah, that's the one I would like to bring that here.
Right. Generally, I wouldn't want to wrap things up without having to hear your opinion for future students. So, if you are to speak to a current undergraduate student from Indiana or any other universities in the US who is considering to go on a semester abroad experience, what would you tell them to convince them to choose OTS?
Well, the first thing I would say is to just do it. I know that there's a lot of apprehension that can come into it, and that's not just about finances, but that's a lot more about being in a new country and meeting new people, and that you can't separate yourself from this group for that entire period of time. But I promise that in doing it, you'll learn not just about ecology, but you'll learn a lot about yourself. And in that, it's an absolutely invaluable experience that you'll remember for the rest of your life. And I think that one of the challenging dynamics here is that as a young person, or as an undergraduate, it might feel that you don't have a lot of availability to travel, because you have this thick schedule full of classes and other obligations, and social obligations included. But it's really one of the best times in your life to actually section out some time and just go for it.
Hope you're listening. We'd love to get you on OTS. Check us out on our website and follow us on our social media. You can always pop in a question. If I would love to have you to have a similar experience like Alec had both in Costa Rica or South Africa. Now, Alec, before I say bye to you, there are a couple of fun questions I just want to throw your way up. And for the first, we're talking about animal encounters. If you could choose one animal from the Kruger National Park to join you for a day of field work, which one would it be and why?
Oh, wow. Well, I automatically want to say elephant, because I love
Mhm.
elephants, but I think that the logistics of getting an elephant with me sometime in the field would be a little bit too much. So, maybe what I would do, I would have one of the birds of South Africa with me in field work. And if I could have a very small bird to bring with me at all
Mhm.
times, then that would help a lot with some of the arboreal primate observations too, because in Costa Rica, more specifically there,
Mhm.
right, it can be really difficult
Right.
to see the primates, and recording their behaviors can be an absolute nightmare.
Mhm.
Um, yeah. Or, what would be great too would be
Mhm.
a large dung beetle.
Yeah,
Because
that's
yeah,
mm,
as you can
mm,
imagine,
mm,
if I have to
mm.
collect a fecal sample from a primate, they
Yeah.
know where to find the dung pretty quick.
Now let's talk OTS survival. What's one quirky item that you absolutely had to bring with you to both Costa Rica and South Africa, and why did you find it indispensable, if there's one, that is?
Well, there is a backpack I purchased. I would share the brand if I remembered it even, but I don't think you need a specific brand or anything like that. But
No, not necessarily.
a
Yeah.
good backpack. I had the same backpack in Costa Rica and later Honduras and then South Africa, and it has stood the test of time because it's waterproof. I'd say that that's the number one thing, is a good waterproof jacket and a good waterproof backpack. Not so much, I suppose, for the Savannah, for the waterproof part, but certainly something that's really durable. That might be really, really practical, not as fun, but I have to say that that's the best piece of equipment.
Let's talk about your dream team to wrap things up. If you could form the ultimate research team with one fictional character and one real world scientist, who would they be and what would you study? Now I'm just trying to juice out your creative skills to just think wildly and
Wow, that's a great question. Well, I have a somewhat sappy answer for part of it. And if I were to start designing my dream team, I would go back with many of the same people who I've met on my field courses in OTS, throughout OTS. Because I feel like I learned a lot alongside them. And I know that if we were to approach a new project together, despite the fact that maybe we had to figure out each other as a group and the dynamics that were there, by the end of it, we could be functioning like a well-oiled engine, right? And so my dream team would be to actually reassemble an older team of some peers. Now, when it comes to choosing a fictional character to add into the mix, though, I'd really have to think about it. Wow, I'm trying to think of some good fictional ecologists, but for some reason, George of the Jungle is coming to mind. Somebody who can speak to animals. If I can bring their fictional ability to speak to animals too, then that would be absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
So
That's
I'll have to go with it. Yeah.
Judge of the Jungle, that would be, if that could be real, I think that would make conservation and ecology and research so much fun. You just chat with them and say, hey, why are you doing this? And you don't have to figure out things. But yeah, I think that would definitely make an ultimate team. That would take quite a bit to beat. So thanks again on that really interesting note. Alec, I just want to thank you so much for making our time to be with us here on the OTS podcast. I really enjoy having this chat with you, and thank you for your time.
Of course, it was so nice to be a part of this. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. And you have a good day further. We'll chat again sometime soon.
Okay, that sounds great.
If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share it with others who care about science, conservation, and the natural world, or with any prospective students who will benefit from the OTS experience. Do follow us on our social media with OTS Abroad on Instagram and Tropical Studies on Facebook. You can also send us an email to podcast@tropicalstudies.org. Remember, each one of us has a part to play in preserving these incredible environments. If you're an OTS alum or you're part of the OTS family with stories to tell, we would love to hear from you. Reach out and be part of the podcast. Until next time, keep exploring, and we'll see you back here on the Trail of Science, Tracks and Trajectories for more amazing OTS stories.